Welcome to the worldwide headquarters and studios of All Duke Sports Talk, where all Duquesne sports fans can unabashedly and fully indulge in everything Duquesne University sports. So, without further ado, let's get to it. And let's go Dukes!
Hey, Dukes fans, it's the most wonderful time of the year, isn't it? It is March, and it is tournament time, and the Atlantic 10 championships will get underway shortly for men's basketball. The Duquesne Dukes women's team didn't have the result they were hoping for in the Atlantic 10 women's bracket, but it is March, and maybe the women's season's not quite over yet. They'll await, hopefully, a WNIT bid, but as for the Duquesne men, it is hopeful that they will go on a hot streak like they did last March and, of course, run the table in the A10 tournament coming up this week. We are recording on Sunday, March 9th. Hopefully by the time we record another show on Sunday, March 16th, we'll be talking about maybe NCAA tournament time again from the Bluffites. So I'm Bob Healy III, and I'm joined, as always, by Rudy Longarini from out in California. Nick Frost is our other co-host, and our guest today is Coach Dave Sheets from the athletics department. Coach, you are the first Duquesne coach or athlete to join the podcast, so you have those honors, and I want to thank you, as well as Trey Staunch and Jim Duzick, for clearing it so we can get you on the podcast. Thanks a bunch.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
We're going to get to women's swimming and diving later on in the show because that season is not yet over, even though the Dukes had a very nice finish, a good showing, third place in the Atlantic 10 championships. There's still some meets left in this season for the Dukes to do well in, perhaps even to qualify for nationals. And we'll have Coach kind of explain the whole B versus A and kind of give us a layman's explanation for that. So we'll get to Coach on that specifically. But first, guys, we do got to talk about what I just mentioned off the hop. Is the Atlantic 10 Men's Basketball Championship Tournament is coming now. The Dukes are seated 9th in that tournament out of 15 teams. So they did avoid the bottom five, bottom four, beg your pardon, which have to play in the 5 games in 5 days, what they would have to do to win that championship. The Dukes are like they were last season. They're in the middle group, so not in the top 4, but they're in that remaining middle spot down to the 10th place. Or I guess it is 11th place because 12 through 15 are the bottom 4. Nevertheless, the Duquesne Dukes will play their first game in the Atlantic 10 Championship this season on March 13th. It's an 11:30 a.m. Eastern tip-off against St. Bonaventure. This championship tournament is held in D.C. at Capital One Arena. The Dukes, again, the number 9 seed. St. Bonaventure is the 8 seed. Should the Dukes win, the Dukes would advance to the quarterfinals, and that would be against number 1 seeded VCU. It is at 11:30 a.m. again Eastern on Thursday, March 13th. That's officially the second round, and that'll be on USA Network. The following round also on USA Network. But let's not start thinking about VCU, boys. Let's talk about how the Dukes got here. It wasn't the greatest end to the regular season. The Dukes losing their last 2 regular season games. Most recently, yesterday, Saturday, March 8th, tough one in overtime at St. Louis. And against VCU in the final home game on Tuesday, March 4th, they lost 71-62. I'll open with Nick. Nick, I want to get your thoughts on those 2 games that we haven't yet covered on this podcast, and also what you think that means moving forward into the tournament. I know I've said on here before, Nick and guys, that the Dukes just don't play well away from home. I mean, that now moves the Dukes to 2-8 on the road, combined with 2-8 neutral site. So we're looking at 4-11 away from Cooper Fieldhouse, where they were 9-7 this season, and they're not going to play at the Coop anymore this year. So is this Dukes team, able to repeat what last season did, despite the dearth of stars? It's more of a team of depth that we talked about on here. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think the results weren't necessarily what fans were looking for, but from a just competitive standpoint, we were in it against 2 of the top teams in the conference. I think VCU is going to be the most difficult team to beat. And then Dayton would probably be the second toughest, but St. Louis is right there as well. I mean, we actually, a lot of our players, I thought, outplayed their biggest stars. The biggest difference was Jimerson for St. Louis, who I don't know why.
Thank God he's graduating.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I don't know why we didn't just stick Crawford on him for the
Yeah.
entire game. Anytime we switched and gave Edwards or Corbett or Rozier the matchup against Jimerson, they took advantage of it. So those are things we can learn and adjust to the next time we play them, if we do play them in the A10 tournament. VCU, I feel like we're right there. We didn't play a very great game against them, and we kept in it up until the end of the game. So neither of these games were A games on our part. We played terribly defensively at St. Louis. And VCU, I feel like we had a few plays go against us. The refs weren't exactly giving us a home whistle. I don't know if the A10 tournament's going to be much better when it comes to giving us. It doesn't seem like we ever really have the good end of the stick when it comes to officiating. But I'm just as optimistic going into the tournament now that I was before these two games. They show that they're just as good as the top teams in the conference. It's just a matter of us playing our A game. And that's really what it's going to come down to.
Rudy, I want to get your thoughts as well. I'm assuming you watched the end of the game yesterday, the 8th against at St. Louis, where the Dukes blew a 6-point lead, in the final minutes, final 41 seconds, actually. Clearly disappointing, but are you leaning toward Nick's way, Rudy, where, they can hang with anybody. If they play their A game, they can beat anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, Nick's last comment on our text feeds that we join in yesterday during the game. Yeah, we're right there. And I, as unlikely to say this, they've improved. Actually, the last two games, I mean, give or take a couple of calls on the VCU game, and us not making it. But the thing is that the depth is shining through. They are doing what I said that they should do. They should run 11 people out there, okay, and constantly rotate the people coming in and out. Our depth is our strength. I don't know how many times I've said that. If you look back on the recruits that we were able to get last year, the whole slew of them, whether it be transfer protocol or whatever, it was abundant then, relevant then, and it was the fact that we have depth. We have across the board a great depth, and we just have to realize that. And then 2 or 3 guys that we traditionally asked to score and be profuse in scoring, and that is Crawford, Dinkins, and Edwards. If 2 out of those 3 guys, or all 3 guys get 10 points or 12 points, that's what I'm looking for. And so I'm not discouraged in the least bit. I was kind of bummed out, yesterday about, we had 5-point lead or 6-point lead with 41 seconds to go or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh, man, we couldn't get a stop. And that idiot guy that they got hit 2 3-pointers on us. So, I mean, unbelievable. And we couldn't get and on the previous game, we got hosed, on a couple of calls by VCU. You think that with a home court advantage that we could get some calls, but no, the refs, and the Pittsburgh refs don't give us any running room, man. I'm telling you, man, we're still the least fouled upon team in the A10. And, we foul the most. So I don't know, man.
It's frustrating. The Dukes don't get to the line very much, and yesterday notwithstanding, when they're there, they don't make that much. A quick clarification or correction, my mistake. It's the bottom six that play the first round now of the A10 tournament because it's a 15-team league, despite the nomer of Atlantic 10. So it's 10 through 15 that play in the first round. So the Dukes just missed it. As the number 9 seed, the 10 seed ended up at Rhode Island. So the Dukes 8 and 10 above Rhode Island at 7 and 11. Coach Sheets, what we've talked about so far, you can agree, disagree, or what are you seeing out of Duquesne? Are they playing well enough to compete with the best teams in A10 men's basketball, or is this looking like a quick out in the tournament?
Well, here's what I think that if we were to take the team that we saw 3 months ago, I think we would all said we'd be at the bottom of the conference. And I think Coach Joyce has done a fantastic job of getting these players to play together. And they actually look, from my perspective, I watched the game last night. I think the team I think they can win a couple games in the tournament. I would just like to see near the end of the game, our players just start to make better decisions. I think near the end, sometimes we rush shots and we don't take the good shot. We just take the easy shot. And I think that sometimes chucking up a 3-pointer isn't always the best thing for us to do. I think we just drive it in and try to get the foul. And I think that happened last night. I mean, my wife heard me screaming at the television. So I think that Coach Joyce has done a great job. I think he's a great coach, and I think that they can do a pretty good job in the conference tournament. I don't know if they're in a position where they can win, but I think that they're going to compete for sure.
It's fun. I don't see a Dayton type team like last year that was clearly going to make the tournament anyway, right? I don't know about you guys, but this strikes me as a one bid league this year. You just look at the overall records in the conference. I mean, no one jumps. I mean, 25-6 for VCU, 24-7 for Mason. But I'll quickly look up the net rankings, guys. But they're kind of bubble teams, unless I'm misreading that. So it's not like there's a shoe-in last year like there was with Dayton. So VCU's 31st in the net rankings. So and then Dayton below them at 66. So I guess there's a really good case to be made for VCU to make this make the NCAA tournament, regardless of how it performs in the Atlantic 10 tournament. But it's not, that team doesn't scare me the way Dayton did last year. And look what we did against Dayton last year. And I know we're down, obviously, Day Grant and Jimmy Clark, and those guys aren't there to rescue this team and put this team on their shoulders. They did so many times last year. But what Rudy has hit upon, I agree with. This team's depth is its strength. This team's biggest star is its depth. And I do give Coach Joyce a lot of credit for keeping this team together and getting their way to even 8 and 10 in the conference, and where they are at 13 and 18 if they're starting out 0 and 6. It's funny, guys. Like this team's record doesn't look like it looked last year around this time, and yet I kind of feel exactly the same way as I did last year. Like they could go on a run. They might fool around and win the whole thing. Obviously we're all rooting for that. I think that test against VCU as the number 1 seed, this is what happens when you're in the middle. That'll be the big one. And there's no hoping somebody upsets them and knocks them out. If we win our first round game Thursday, that's what's waiting for us is VCU. And so I do think the Dukes will win a first round game. I really do. And at that point, the VCU game will be the tell. We'll see in that game, I think, how this team's going to shape up the rest of that tournament. It could be very exciting, or could be one and done or two and done. Before I close the book on men's basketball, are there any other burning thoughts or questions you guys have regarding this team that we haven't talked about? So I do want to talk about what happened with the women in Henrico, Virginia yesterday.
I did want to give one more reason for optimism, which is that if we do play VCU after we face off against the Bonnies, last year all the teams that had that extra day's rest all lost. So getting VCU with this extended break is probably our best chance at topping them. So we are in kind of a better position, strangely, after losing last night, seeding-wise, where I think we have a better chance of beating VCU and getting them off of their game, where they may not be shooting as hot in this first game of the tournament after we get a game in the day before. So just to give a little more reason for optimism, I think we'll have a better chance of extending far into the tournament with where our seating is now versus if we did win that game against St. Louis, we'd be playing, I think George Mason would be our second game.
Yeah, but either way, dude, I don't think that I'm intimidated by anybody above us or below us. We could beat any one of these guys. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's hard to lose. Do we play? We didn't play VCU twice this year, did we?
No, the only time was this
Well,
past
yeah.
week.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that we got a fighter's chance. Like I said, roll out. Everybody gets 10 minutes or more, 11 people. Okay. So by the time that we get to the VCU game or the games afterwards, everyone on there. Now I'm gonna, Nexus is I saw played like 33 minutes. Like he's an essential, but everybody else on there has uh, evened out the amount of playing time, and that's exactly what's going to allow us to, when that fourth game comes up or that third game comes up, these guys are going to be fresh. So not fresh as a daisy per se, but I mean relatively fresh.
Yeah, it's cool because this being consecutive days, right? This is where that depth could really pay off. When you have 2 or 3 days or a week between games, you don't see it as much. But in a tournament like this, 4 games in 4 days, yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility that could be the key. That could be sort of the hidden vigorish here for Duquesne. Nick, were you asking whom Duquesne would play should it advance past VCU?
Well, at that point, I mean, it could be a lot of teams. It could be
And
St.
that's play
St.
Loyola
Louis
Chicago
or Loyola. Yeah,
Yeah.
is the main
So
fit there.
that game, by the way, just so everyone's aware, the semifinals would be on Saturday, March 15th. That'd be a 1 p.m. tip-off on CBS Sports Network, and then the championship game is Sunday, March 16th, and that is on CBS at 1 p.m. Coach Sheets, any final thoughts on men's basketball before we turn the page to the ladies?
No, it's March. It's everyone that gets excited about tournament basketball. So I'm just excited to see them play, and I hope that they make a nice little run.
Same. Yeah. Can you talk about actually, Coach, how it helped your program and the whole athletics department when that team went on that run? Because that's a perspective some people kind of don't realize, right? Is that it helps the entire brand, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, when we beat BYU in that game, I was down at a swim meet in Virginia Tech, and people up in the stands were talking about Duquesne beating BYU, and every recruit that I had talked to after that, we watched the game. We watched Duquesne beat BYU. So, for us, it just adds a little bit more, I would say, excitement to the university. And not just one program, but all of our athletic programs get a little bit of a boost when something like that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and obviously this is why the investment in basketball is what it is. So the Duquesne ladies were ousted in the second round, beg your pardon, third round, technically, of the Atlantic 10 championship. 2 days ago, Friday, March 7th, the Dukes played their hearts out, I thought, guys, against Richmond in what was basically, home game for them, in Henrico, Virginia. But by the way, it depends on what channel you're watching. It's either Henrico or Henrico. I've called it both things. I can't find a definitive answer anywhere. But at the Henrico Sports and Events Center where the A10 championships were played, the Dukes ladies knocked off number 8 Fordham at 11 a.m. on March 6th, 79-63, and then turned around the next day at 11 a.m. to face off against number 1 seeded Richmond. And it just was very inspiring, guys. I mean, I thought Kiandra Browne was a huge leader for them. It's the best I've seen her play in her time at Duquesne since maybe that's the City game a season ago where she took that game over. But this was against Richmond, who's going to the tournament anyway. I think they're going to be in the tournament. George Mason might be in the tournament as well. This could be a 3-bid league if someone pulls an upset. The A10 women's basketball championship will continue throughout the rest of this week, and we'll keep an eye on it. But I would have loved to have seen Duquesne finish that upset. The Dukes were actually up late in that second half, and there was the pivotal moment that I know we all saw.
Browne got fouled.
Kiandra had a shot dead on, looking straight at the hoop. She doesn't get fouled. She might make it. She does get obviously fouled on the right arm.
Refs.
And Dan Bird almost blew a lid because when the whistle blew after she shot an air ball, everyone assumed it was because, there was a foul, but it turns out it was a shot clock violation because it hit no rim. And, that was one of the most upset I've seen, Coach Burt look. And so we no free throws either, and the Dukes end up losing 63-58. It's a really tough way for that game to end. I'm also disappointed for the seniors, of course, right, that had to end that way. Kiandra Browne, by the way, is listed as a senior, but looking at her bio, she was a freshman in 2020-21. But Coach Sheets, if I'm not mistaken, all the winter athletes in 2020-21 were given a free year. Is that right?
That is correct. I believe so. Yeah, that's the COVID year. It was extended.
So,
I think it was 2021 was the COVID year. So you had an extra year of eligibility.
So assuming that didn't count, she'd still be a freshman in at Indiana in 21-22, and she did play, appeared in 30 games. The next year, she only appeared in 7, so that'd be a medical. So she would have still been a sophomore then the next year in 23-24 for the Dukes. So I'm counting her as a junior this year, but athletically, but maybe she's just done with school. She is listed as a senior on the women's basketball website. I apologize, I don't have more clarity on that. I just noticed it as I was preparing for the show right before we started recording. So I'm assuming Kiandra is also done playing college basketball. And it was just a tough way to go out. That Richmond team's outstanding. They destroyed the Dukes like a month or so ago. I was at that game. It was not good. It was in that really bad lull that the Duquesne ladies had. But boy, did they play hard yesterday, Nick.
Yeah, they did. And Kiandra in the post-game presser really sounded as eloquent as any player I've heard. So if you haven't gone back and listened to the post-game presser, Megan McConnell showed a lot of emotion in her statement, but Kiandra really impressed me, and Dan Burt commented on it. She has some just incredible depth to her, which kind of was shown there, that really makes you proud as an alumnus that we had such great athletes playing for us. And I'm sure Coach Sheets can share similar sentiments with his athletes on his teams, where if they're more than just athletes and great people too, it just adds that much more pride to them being part of your program. So in the face of total adversity where a player could be cursing out a ref in the post game, she showed some great insight into what made this team special. So if you have time, go back and listen to the post game presser of that game.
Kiandra, by the way, the subject of a national news article written by the New York Times recently. So kudos to the PR gurus at Duquesne Athletics. That's Jim Duzick and his staff, Jacob Davey and Trey Staunch as well in there. I'm assuming these guys had something to do with that, of course. Could have been above them as well at University Marketing and Comm. But Kiandra Browne wears, full head to toe attire, being a practicing Muslim basketball player, and she has started a company to sell that type of gear, right? Sportswear to Muslim athletes. And so in this day and age of being able to make money off of your athleticism, even as a college athlete, that's really cool. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, unfortunately, you need a subscription. But if you subscribe to The Athletic, you can also read it. So it is an Athletic because it's a sports article as well. You can find that article. Yeah, I was also impressed at how well those guys kept it together. Dan Burt's post-game quotes were, I can't say what I want to say or I could get fined. Coach, have you had problems like that before? We're like, oh, I better bite my tongue because, boy, that's a tough way to go out, isn't it?
Well, in swimming, we don't have the worry about the fouls or we have the disqualification.
Oh, come on, there's lane violations. There's, false starts.
Yeah, there's been a couple instances where I've had my assistant coaches had to kind of refrain me from a disqualification that I felt was unjust. And, but it never gets quite as heated as it does in basketball or football. Swimming is a little bit less controversial when it comes to stuff like that. But, the way that happened with that game and that foul, I can completely understand why Dan got upset. to me, it did look like that her arm was hit. But I mean, it's unfortunate for the entire team, especially the way they came out and played against Fordham. And they just completely dominated that game. And then with the heart that they played and they showed against Richmond was, it was inspiring because those ladies just never quit. They just kept going after Richmond and kept getting after them and making sure that they kept it close. And it's unfortunate the way the game ended, but sometimes that's just the way sports works out.
The end of season awards were announced prior to the A10 tournament taking place for the ladies, and the player of the year was Richmond's Maggie Dugan, and that she's a fantastic player. This is not to take anything away from Maggie Dugan, but guys, it seems to me that the best player from the best team just got the award. I looked at the numbers, and now look, I'm looking at things through red and blue colored glasses, and I always will. I guess it doesn't work here because that's Richmond's colors as well, but you get the idea, right? I'm biased, but I looked at the numbers, and you talk about Maggie puts up good numbers, Maggie Dugan, but she's doing it on a team with lots of other stars around her. Very good team. Megan is the only player from Duquesne on any of the all-conference teams. Defensive, first, second, rookie, it's just Megan. Now, she's the very deserved defensive player of the year. She's first team all-conference, but, guys, I just thought it was a miss. I don't know who votes on those coaches. Is it the coaches who vote on those awards typically?
I know at least with swimming it is. The coaches will vote on those outstanding player awards and stuff. So
I'm betting
it's a good possibility. But with basketball, it may be the sports information directors too. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would guess it would be the coaches.
I think it is because that's what I remember from my days as an SID and from also being an athlete was like, because at the conclusion of your meet, like it was for track, the coaches gather around and they vote obviously based on how that meet went. And for this, it's going to be based on the whole season, but the coaches, I'm assuming, are making this call. I just found it a big miss. I don't know. The rationale must just be best player on the best team. Rudy, how did you see that?
Well, yeah, she's the high scorer in the league. Usually, McConnell, you would think would be the ace in the hole, and she's defensive player. So, I mean, I don't understand the rationale behind that. And like you said, the Richmond player, I mean,
great player,
no doubt. But I mean, she's not coming up with the steals. She doesn't have the steals that McConnell. I just don't understand that. I think
help.
We get no respect. Rodney Dangerfield here. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, you know what? Rudy, Megan McConnell is the leading scorer as of right now. I mean, I'm looking at the updated stats. I mean, right. 18.3 to 16.3. And, Rachel Olstrom from Richmond's also averaging 15.5. You have to scroll a long way down until you get to Journey Kyaku down there at 12.9 at 15th overall. I mean, Megan's working with a lot less, but Megan at 18.3 points per game, right? That leads the conference. Megan also rebounds a ton. She's a double-double machine. She averages 7 rebounds a game. Maggie Dugan's at 6.9, so that's kind of a push, right? Assists, Megan 5.2, no contest. Maggie Dugan at 3.6. And then we're not even talking about the defense where basically Megan's the best in the country at thefts. I don't know what the final numbers are right now, but
I'm telling you, man, it's
for
cooked.
a game. Yeah, I just thought that was a huge swing and a miss. Nick, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so the Becky Hammond Mid-Major Player of the Year finalists were announced. There's 5 of them. Megan's on here. Dugan's not. So, I mean, if you're looking at a national perspective, that seems clear. You're looking at a points per game perspective, that seems clear. You're looking at a defensive perspective, that seems clear. They had the same amount of rebounds despite one being a point guard and one being a power forward. I mean, I was particularly peeved about this. Women's basketball in particular, we've had a few great players that have never gotten a sole Player of the Year award. April Robinson had to share her title with a St. Louis player that also had a lot of stats that were significantly lesser than hers that year. So this is another chip that Coach Bird is very good at collecting chips on his shoulders and his teams. That was one of them. Mackenzie not getting named A10 rookie team was another one. So I know I've kind of adopted it too. It adds a little more each time. I'm sure everybody's a little frustrated about it, but they won't. Meg's never going to say anything about it, but she got robbed here.
Yeah. Yeah. And there, hey, look, maybe there's going to be bigger fish to fry for Megan McConnell, national awards, maybe All America awards. I think she's deserving. She's the best women's basketball player I've seen at Duquesne. And since I've been a student athlete till now, having boomerang back to Pittsburgh and working here and watching this, and I haven't seen a better player than her. I haven't seen Duquesne play anybody this year who's been better than her, including Ms. Dugan, who's a fantastic player. Yeah, it's one of those situations, guys. Maybe she, like her brother TJ, just continues to prove everybody wrong. I don't know why people continue to underestimate McConnell's. It never works out for him, right? So we'll see what the future holds for Megan. By the way, guys, I know I told our viewers that we were keeping an eye on the A10 championship game, which started at 4, but I can't find a score right now.
George Mason is up 68-58 with 50 seconds left. So it looks like George Mason's probably going to win the conference tournament.
So we're looking at I think it's a 2-bid league, George Mason and Richmond. I don't see anybody else making the tournament for the Atlantic 10 women. Do you guys?
St. Joe's has an outside chance, but I think it would have been better if they had won the conference tournament, and then George Mason might have been the third team to sneak in.
Yeah. Now I do think the Duquesne ladies present an interesting NIT case, but that's just going to depend on how many upsets happen in conference tournament play, because the more upsets you have, right? I mean, it's going to hurt their chances. So a lot of teams that wouldn't have made it, right, are not going to trickle down into the NIT. So we'll see. It's the Duquesne ladies didn't have a terrific season in terms of those net rankings. A lot of their wins are coming in quad 4. So this might be the end for the Duquesne ladies. I would love to watch them play again. And Coach Burt's going to prepare as if they have a chance to keep playing. But we'll wait on that. If the Duquesne ladies are going to play, you'll hear us talking about it here on All Duke Sports Talk. I want to move into football very quickly. There's not a lot of news there from the football program. The spring season is underway. The Duquesne Dukes started spring practice on February 24th. They once again will practice on Monday, March 10th. And then a couple practices every week, basically till the end of March. April 2nd is the penultimate practice, and the spring game is April 5th. And I'm told by Jacob Davey, who is the SID for football, that the spring game will be try to look as much like a real red and blue game as possible, which isn't something that normally was done. So they're going to keep stats on Genius Football stat software and try to have a real game as best they can, maybe just eschewing kickoffs, but having a legit game. So if you can get to Rooney Field on April 5th, that time is to be determined. That will be the spring game this year. Coach Sheets, have you planned anything around maybe going to the city game at Acrobatics August 30th to see Duquesne play Pitt? Is your team going to tailgate, anything fun like that?
We're going to, whether we tailgate or not, I don't know, but we're definitely going to take the team over and watch the game. I think for us, for Duquesne, it's a great opportunity to kind of showcase our product and play in front of a fan base like our football fan base and Pitt. I think it's great for the city. We're definitely excited. My wife works at Pitt too, so we're excited about it. I mean, I know the swimmers have talked about it already, so it's circled on our calendar for next year for sure.
Well, we won't hold it against your wife that
I tell her that all the time.
Yeah. Now, are you guys gonna look are your swimmers? Now, you only have women swimmers, but I don't know. You probably saw the men's swim team at Bucknell. They're all over ESPN's Instagram today. Have you seen that story?
No, what happened?
So the men's swimmers at Bucknell during the Patriot League tournament, or maybe it's the end of their regular season, they're right behind the basket, and the other team shooting free throws. They just drop their warm-ups and they're wearing Speedos only, and it happens right when the kid's about to shoot a free throw. And if he misses one, then they turn around and they do it from the back, and then the kid airballed, and it was really cool. I don't know how that would play with the ladies team, of course, but that was it was pretty neat to see a swim team get on board with March Madness. So anyway, I'll see you at Acrobatics. I'll try to anyway. I'm definitely going to go to that one.
Oh, we'll be there for sure.
Good to know. And let's move on to lacrosse. We've been hinting at this for a while. We got to talk about women's lacrosse. Kudos, the ladies opened up the Atlantic 10 portion of their season with an 11-10 win over George Washington yesterday, Saturday, March 8th. It was a 1 p.m. opening draw at Rooney Field. Those games, by the way, Duquesne lacrosse games, home games, can be seen on ESPN Plus. So if you have a subscription, you can watch the Dukes ladies lacrosse in action. One of these. Moving forward, now that we've tested the waters, pun fully intended with Dave Sheets, we'll try to get some other coaches and athletes on from the rest of our teams and maybe talk to a lacrosse player. Women's lacrosse at Duquesne recently hasn't had as much success as they would have wanted, of course, but historically it's been a pretty good program. There's been some strong regular season success there anyway. And the Dukes ladies are off to, again, this 1-0 start in A10 play with a thrilling 11-10 victory on the 8th. The Dukes are now 4-2 overall. And next up for women's lacrosse this coming week, March 12th at LaSalle for a 2 p.m. Draw, and then March 15th, that's a Saturday, at noon at UMass. The Dukes return home on March 22nd versus VCU at 1 p.m. Free admission at Rooney Field, and again, if you can't get to it, it's on ESPN Plus. Nick, when you were on campus, was there interest in lacrosse? Had you gone to those games? It was our only real spring semester spectator sport, pure spring spectator sport, and still kind of is. I mean, acrobatics and tumbling and swimming are really just toward the end of the winter season. I never really noticed much interest in lacrosse, unfortunately. Pittsburgh's a weird market for lacrosse, isn't it?
Yeah, I still went to a few games, and I can tell you that their goal celebration songs could be heard as you were walking to class pretty regularly during the spring. So it was still cool to see. I did actually watch the highlights of the lacrosse game, and it was an instant classic. They scored the game winner with like less than 2 minutes left. So if they keep exciting games like that up, hopefully some fans will start to trickle in and watch the games. And just like kind of happened with acrobatics and tumbling so far.
Lacrosse is a lot of fun. The huge drawback, obviously, is it's cold in March and in Pittsburgh most of April, and you got to watch it outside. I know when I was a student, when I was an undergrad, the ladies were co-Atlantic 10 champions in the regular season in 04 and 05, which was my junior and senior year as an undergrad. So they were fun. And I would go, I would occasionally catch that. And a lot of my students work during the games, and so I've gone and worked a couple games as well. When I was at Hamilton College in upstate New York, we won the Division III women's lacrosse national title. I still have a national championship watch as their SID, which was super cool. And yeah, it was very exciting. It is a very, very fun sport. But up in New York, Ontario, and then down in Maryland and Virginia, that's really the hotbed. And over here in Western PA, I think the struggle, of course, for interest is there. It's not historically important here in Western PA. We only have a handful of teams, I think, that play lacrosse in the WPIAL, really. So I could be mistaken on that, but that just shows my level of ignorance toward it. But that being said, it's a very fun sport to watch. It's a spectator sport. It's free admission. It's at Rooney Field, and they could be turning things around. So kudos to the women's Laxers. Rudy, of course, there wasn't lacrosse at Duquesne, I don't think, when you were there.
I was going to bring that up. I mean, how many sports have been added since Title IX? Wow, it's just incredible. The whole environment changed after Title IX because you want to get the women's sports in and so yeah. I don't know. I mean, we didn't have lacrosse for men, did we?
Never.
I don't think back then.
Not that I
Do we have
recall.
lacrosse for men?
No, I mean, there's a club team. But
Okay.
The first year of women's lacrosse was 1997 officially, according to go
Okay.
And I don't believe there's ever been a formal varsity men's lacrosse team, but records being what they are, but as far as I can tell, it has not existed. But yeah, women's lacrosse, it's a popular sport nationally, and it is a very
Right.
fun spectator sport. Since you brought up Title IX and women's sports, I think we can segue to not only acrobatics and tumbling, but also to Coach Sheets' turf for women's swimming and diving. So acrobatics and tumbling is one of the more recent additions to Duquesne athletics, and they've been a lot of fun. Coach, have you been down to any of the acrobatics and tumbling competitions?
I actually went to the first one.
Wasn't that fun?
It was exciting. It was exciting. I mean, we went, me and my entire staff went to watch the I guess you call them the match. We had a great time. I mean, it's exciting and it's nice the different, I guess, performances that they put on throughout the match. So we enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, there's only been the one, I should say. That's my fault. But they're going to return on Tuesday, March 11th at 6 p.m. to the Cooper Fieldhouse to take on the #1 ranked team in the National Collegiate Acrobatics and Tumbling Association, and that's Baylor, which is, it's cool to see a Big 12 A4 school come into, one of these Power 4 schools come into the Cooper Fieldhouse and play you in anything. So that event on Tuesday, March 11th at 6 p.m., that meet or that match, if you will, it's just one team on one team. And as Coach was saying, there's lots of different events that add up to a team score. And it's very thrilling. And it's really cool to watch the acrobatics and the athleticism that goes into these pyramids and these tumbling exhibitions. By the way, sounds like, guys, they heeded our advice and are going to open up concessions because $1 beers Tuesday, March 11th for the acrobatics and tumbling meet. So if you didn't get there before, you can go there now and really have a good time. So I'm going to try to make it. I brought my daughters to the first one too, Coach, and they loved it. Nick, are you coming Tuesday?
I don't think I'll be able to make it Tuesday. I took Archer to the basketball game on Tuesday against VCU. A former judge that I worked with actually gave me their seats, which had the free ice cream and popcorn and cookies. So that kept his interest going for the first half. And then we had to leave early that game. So I don't think I'll be able to keep him as interested without those free sweets. So I'll watch from home. But I did want to add, first 100 people that go to the acro and tumbling event also get a free water bottle.
Nice.
So the marketing team is really pulling out the stops to get everybody to go to this game or match event. I don't know what the terminology is here, but should be fun. Hopefully everybody shows up.
Yeah, we are still learning so much about it, aren't we? A few people didn't get the water bottle at the last giveaway for basketball, so here's your chance. 6 p.m. Tuesday the 11th. The Dukes will stay at home for their next two events against number 14 LIU on March 16th at 3 p.m. and then April 6th against Buffalo State College at 3 p.m. These, by the way, these are also on ESPN Plus, which is pretty cool. And then the Dukes will compete, I assume, at the NCATA championships. So their national championships. This is an NCAA emerging sport, not a championship sport yet. That's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, April 24th through April 27th. Now, on to another women's event. It's one of the Olympic sports, if you will, women's swimming and diving. That season is not yet over, and Coach Sheets is going to explain to us why. Because the A10 championships are over. The Dukes finished a very respectable third, had a number of individual champions. But, Coach, you've got some diving competition coming up, right? And then you have the coaches competition and then nationals. Can you tell us how this shakes out and which one of your athletes, how many of them are still competing and how this works?
So our two divers, Ashley Filitsky and Bree Dempsey, left for NCAA zones this morning, and they'll be competing. They'll practice today and they'll compete on Monday, Tuesday. Bree will be on the 1 meter, and then Ashley qualified for both the 1 meter and the 3 meter. And the way that zones works, it's really a complicated process for diving. You have to be in the top 15, I would say, to make the NCAA meet. So, for our divers, this will probably end up being their last competition of the season. And then for our swimmers, we've got 9 swimmers that are getting ready to compete at the NIC meet. And in simple terms, the NIC meet is pretty much like the NIT for basketball. It's for any swimmer that has an NCAA B cut that didn't get invited to the NCAA meet. So we'll take 9 down there. That's in Ocala, Florida. That meet starts on Thursday, the 13th, and ends up on the 16th, Saturday.
So that's the CSCAA meet.
Yes.
Schedule.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the meet that our coaches association puts on.
So I kind of would equate this to being a trackster. This is like the last chance meet that we would have, basically, to try to qualify.
No, because for the qualifying for the women's meet is over. It's passed.
I see. So these
So,
are people who have not made the A cut, essentially.
well, it's not who have made the A cut. It's people that have made the B cut but didn't get invited to the NCAA meet.
Oh, I understand completely now. I got you. Because some of the Bs got invited because of the way the numbers shook out. The A's
Yes.
automatically go. This is
Yep.
almost like it's a consolation. It's a big deal, but it's like it's still one more chance to compete.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. So, can you tell us who's going to be at the national championships come March 20th through the 22nd in Federal Way, Washington?
You mean from our team?
Yes.
We don't have anybody qualified.
Man, it's tough to make it, isn't it? The numbers are
It is.
through the roof.
The way I try to make a comparison with our NCAA championship meet, the NCAA swimming and diving championship meet is really the fastest meet in the world. And this is where pretty much the top swimmers in the world compete that are collegiate. And for anybody to make that NCAA meet, you're talking about some of the top athletes in the country, top swimmers in the country. And if you were to take our NCAA championships and create a world event, a lot of these competitors at this meet would be tops in the world event. So it's a very challenging meet. And just to kind of, so to make the 200 backstroke, which is Haley's event, last year it took a 153.7 to make the meet. This year it took a 153.3. So swimming just continues to get faster and faster. And the way that the technology with the suits and the training, the way training has evolved, it's a challenging meet. And if you can make that meet, I mean, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, especially since the Americans, right, in terms of the swim world, are basically the dominant country in swimming.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Haley Scholler, you mentioned there, she's a multiple Atlantic 10 champion, the 200 back being her specialty. She also does butterfly, individual medley. She's a senior from Jameson, PA. She was a big get for you recruiting wise, right? Haley had a magnificent career. She qualified for the Olympic trials in last calendar year. That's the backdrop behind you. Can you talk about Haley, maybe where she's going to continue to go swimming wise, or what her plans are?
Haley's one of those kids that came in and she was good, but she did everything that she needed to do to become the level of swimmer that she is. I mean, when we sat down after her freshman year and I said, well, what are your goals? She goes, well, I want to make Olympic trials. And I said, well, this is what you have to do that. And she stayed every summer after her freshman year and trained with us. And that really I really believe, helped expedite her success. And, she's just the kind of kid that is always wants to be better and works extremely hard. She's got a great attitude when it comes to swimming. She always comes to practice with a smile on her face. So for her, I think that finishing up the way she did it at the conference meet and then going to NICs, that's kind of icing on the cake for her. I know that she wants to kind of go into coaching at some level. And then, with her major in marketing, looking for possibilities as a professional in that. But, she has been even all of our seniors were just fantastic people. And just, I've never had a meet like the A10s where every senior won a lifetime best. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, well, congratulations to you on that then. Kudos. That is really cool. And I will say for Haley, I was able to have her in class once, and I was really impressed with her just as a young person. So yeah, she was a total winner. Again, she's back-to-back champ in the 200 backstroke. She defended that this year at A10s. You also had Orla Egan win the 200 free. Ashley Friel won the 100 fly. Any other big standout performances that maybe you have coming back next year where you see this team going?
Well, I mean, Ashley, obviously, she was the freshman performer of the meet.
Of course, yeah.
Which was awesome. And then Sierra Snow, who was also a freshman, she finished second in the 200 back right behind Haley. And she finaled in the 100 back. So and Sydney Severini, who finished third in the 200 breaststroke with a record time of 2:11. Obviously losing Orla and Haley and Kiandra is going to be a huge loss for us. But our freshman class, who will be just sophomores next year, and our leadership that we're going to have moving into the next season, we're in a really good place. So The dynamic and the culture that we've got going right now is exciting, and we've got a great group of kids. And Nick talked about, it's always great to have great swimmers, but when you can combine that with great human beings, it makes it so much better to be a part of that process and be a part of that program. So that's the one thing that I will say is that our program is filled with great human beings.
So we usually go around at the end here, Coach, and we do sort of a final word on everything. I'm going to come to you last. Thank you for the update on swimming and for everything else you've contributed today, and good luck. I'm looking forward to the next time you hang a banner in there. I think you had back-to-back at one point not too long ago. So we're all looking forward to seeing another banner go up at Towers Pole. Nick, I want to come to you first on final thoughts on anything we talked about today, but I do want to focus on men's basketball, seeing as that's the coming A10 championship we've all been looking forward to.
Yeah, Rudy was talking about the depth being the key to our success. I do think that Coach Joyce and the team has kind of figured out the rotation really well towards the second half of this season. And I really hope that the key contributors, Netchis, Crawford, Rozier, Dixon, Eli, we could list all 11 guys that get on the floor. If they get hot, no team can prepare for all of them. It was brought up in the broadcast last night where it is tough to scout against our team because any number of those guys could go off for 20 some points. Hopefully we can use that to our advantage and shut down the key contributors on the other teams that are a little easier to pick out. Also, Coach, if Haley's looking for a coaching experience, maybe a grad assistant position might be in her future.
You never know. There's always a possibility.
We have a Master of Fine Arts in the media department. She'd be a good fit. Rudy, thoughts on anything? And again, especially men's basketball as we head into A10s.
Just to reiterate what Nick said, our depth is our solution and the best thing about us. And Drew, just find one or two guys, feel the pulse of who's hot and who's not. And, I think he's going to be able to do it. I think he's finalized the rotations now. I think he knows what he's doing a little bit better. I mean, if you look at just one thought. If you look at the presence of Drew during the first 6 games of the season, towards the beginning of the season, and the difference of him and his demeanor, the way that he's coaching, his facial expressions, etc. The guy is, has figured it out. I mean, you look at
he's even keeled. He is
6,
even keeled.
Yeah, he looked out of his league the first 6 games and the beginning of the season. You could tell. I mean, and he looked confused and now when you look at him, he is self-assured. He knows what he wants to do, and he's very explicit with the players and what he's asking them to do and the roles. And I think he's figured it out. It's taken us a season to do it, but I think we might be able to catch some lightning in the bottle here and possibly surprise some people and maybe get to the championship game here. And we'll see what happens.
Nick, I really like what you said too. It's hard to game plan against us. You can't just take away 1 or 2 guys. There's any number of guys on this team could beat you. And again, I do think what Rudy's been hitting on with this team's depth, and this goes, part and parcel with what you're saying. That depth works so well in a tournament like this. We're trying to compete in 4 games in 4 days. So yeah, this could be exciting. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Dukes haven't won a single game yet this championship. So it remains to be seen. By the way, the update, the George Mason Patriots did finish out 73-58 over the St. Joe's Hawks to win the Atlantic 10 championship for the ladies. So congrats to George Mason, very deserving champs. St. Joe's had upset Richmond to advance to that game. So I think we all would have preferred St. Joe's to win because maybe we'd have 3 teams in the NCAA tournament. But turns out that it was chalk and Mason, number 2 seed, won. So congrats to Mason. I think we all expect Richmond to also make the tournament. And I think you said St. Joe's is a bubble team, kind of. Yeah. So we'll see when the selection show comes out. But let's turn our attention to the men this week. I want to. I've given my spiel, basically just echoing what my co-hosts have mentioned. So yeah, let's see what happens. Coach Sheets, anything you want to add to anything we've talked about today?
Well, it's March Madness, so anything can happen. And, last year, I don't think anyone, except for maybe Keith Dambrot, thought that we could win the conference championship, and we ended up doing it. So, if we get on a run, I think it'd be exciting. It's going to be exciting for the university, exciting for the athletic department. I appreciate you guys for doing this show and this podcast. I think it's great that obviously covering basketball and football, but covering all the sports. I know that as a coach, I appreciate it. And, watching the show and hearing you guys talk about the other sports has been fantastic for us, and it helped us as well. So I appreciate that. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you for that feedback, Coach. Yeah, we love it. And we love the Dukes. And you guys are a big part of that. Well, so I guess that'll close us out for this edition of All Duke Sports Talk. We'll be back with a new episode that recaps the men's basketball season up to that point, because maybe they could still be playing. And then we'll also have a chance to talk about that fun acrobatics and tumbling meet coming up, and also how the track and field and lacrosse seasons and tennis and the rest of the spring sports are progressing. So that being said, till next time, shoo shoo, rah rah, go Dukes.
Thanks, guys.
Go Dukes!